I was stacking dishes one evening when something on the counter made me pause, a receipt. I picked it up, squinting at the name of the restaurant, a place I'd never been to with Olivia. The date was recent and the handwriting, small, precise, unfamiliar, made my stomach twist. I set it down, telling myself it was probably nothing, a mistake. But my mind refused to accept that. Olivia came in, humming softly, carrying the scent of that new perfume I didn't recognize. It clung to her like a shadow. She smiled, but there was a delay, a hesitation, like she had been rehearsing it in front of some invisible audience. My chest tightened, a slow burn that I couldn't shake. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe. Your subscription keeps us going. Over the next few days I noticed more. She checked her phone at the slightest vibration, always quickly stepping away to answer. There were subtle changes. Dinners eaten in silence, her laptop closed too quickly when I walked into the room. A new routine I hadn't seen before. The house felt different somehow, even though nothing had changed. The smell of her perfume lingered in corners, a ghost marking spaces she had occupied. I began to notice details I had always ignored, the way she paused before answering certain questions. The way her eyes flicked toward the window when I spoke, as if she were expecting someone else. I would stand in the kitchen, staring at the fridge, trying to anchor myself to some sense of normalcy, but it slipped like sand through my fingers. Nights became unbearable. I lay awake, heart pounding, mind racing. Every word, every laugh, every glance I'd shared with her replayed like a film with missing scenes. The home that had once been my sanctuary felt like a stage, each room hiding secrets I couldn't yet name. I felt like a ghost, inhabiting a life that no longer belonged to me. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a quiet voice whispered that the receipt was only the beginning, that something else, something far worse, was waiting to be discovered. The receipt gnawed at me like an itch I couldn't reach. At first I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was overthinking. But then I noticed the small things that didn't add up. Her phone habits had changed. Every time it vibrated, she grabbed it instantly. Stepping out of the room to answer, she started locking it more often, her fingers brushing over the screen nervously. I caught glimpses of messages she quickly minimized, too fast for me to see. There were other signs too, little inconsistencies I couldn't unsee. A lipstick mark on a coffee mug that wasn't hers. Clothes in the laundry that smelled faintly of her new perfume but weren't hers. Calendar entries for lunch or work meetings at times she'd claimed to be at home. Even the way she laughed sometimes, slightly delayed, almost rehearsed, set my nerves on edge. I tried to act normal, to keep up the routine we had built over years, but the house felt alien. Sleep became impossible. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, feeling my chest tighten with every imagined scene. I traced every word she had said that day, every smile, every touch. My mind became a detective, parsing every action, trying to connect the dots. Then came the first whisper of confirmation. Patrick, a friend who had started noticing Olivia's odd behavior, sent me a message, a photograph. My stomach sank before I even opened it. There she was, at the very restaurant from the receipt, sitting close to a man I didn't know. They were laughing, leaning into each other. My hands trembled. That was the moment everything shifted. I realized this wasn't a series of coincidences. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. And for the first time, I understood that my life as I knew it had already begun to unravel, quietly, invisibly, and completely. I didn't shout. I didn't demand answers, not yet. Instead, I watched, quietly, almost invisibly, piecing together the evidence that had been staring me in the face all along. Every late text, every sudden work meeting, every subtle change in her routine became part of a puzzle I was finally willing to solve. Then came the proof I couldn't deny. Patrick had gone further. He had followed the breadcrumbs I hadn't dared to. He sent me more photographs. Olivia in that same restaurant, closer now, laughing in a way she never laughed with me. The man, well-dressed, confident, touched her hand in a way that made my stomach knot with anger and disbelief. My chest felt hollow, my hands cold. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I moved with quiet precision, clothes folded neatly, a suitcase packed as if I were leaving for a short trip, though I knew I wouldn't return. The photographs I had collected, each one undeniable proof, were placed carefully on the kitchen table, face down, no notes, no explanations, just the weight of truth left for her to find. Before I stepped out, I lingered, taking in every corner of the house that had once felt like home. The smell of laundry, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint echo of laughter, they were ghosts now. I closed the door behind me with deliberate calm, feeling the heaviness of betrayal but also the fragile clarity of a choice finally made. I was leaving not in anger but in dignity. I was reclaiming the life she had quietly undermined. 10 years later, I found myself in a crowded conference hall, the hum of conversation all around me. Life had changed, reshaped itself in ways I had never imagined back then. Beside me, Sarah, my wife of 7 years, smiled warmly. Calm, steady, perceptive, she was the quiet strength I had longed for without even realizing it. Together, we had built a life filled with peace, trust, and small, everyday joys. And then I saw her, Olivia. Time had softened her vibrancy, but it couldn't erase the weight in her eyes. She looked at me, a flicker of recognition and regret passing across her face. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, and in that instant, 1,000 unspoken words, memories, and choices hung between us. I didn't speak, she didn't either. The room moved around us, a blur of strangers and laughter, but in that second, all that existed was the life we had shared and the life we had lost. Sarah noticed, but she didn't flinch. Her hand brushed mine, a silent reassurance, her trust unshaken. I exhaled, slow and steady, feeling a weight lift from my chest. Closure wasn't about forgetting, it wasn't about revenge, it was about the life I had chosen, the dignity I had preserved. The past was no longer a chain but a shadow I could walk beside without fear. I turned back to Sarah, to the warmth and peace of the life we had built, and for the first time in years I walked forward completely unburdened, leaving the ghost behind. 10 years after I left Olivia, life had finally settled into a rhythm I had fought hard to build. Peaceful mornings with Sarah, laughter echoing through our home, and a sense of stability I had never thought possible after betrayal. The past felt distant, a shadow I only noticed when I glanced back. Then one afternoon my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't expected appeared on the screen. Olivia. My chest tightened. We need to talk. I stared at the words, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to delete it immediately, to leave the past buried where it belonged. But another part, a quiet curiosity, a remnant of old habit, made me read it. No apology, no explanation, just the simple weighty words that suggested she had unfinished business. I didn't respond right away. I sat quietly, heart pounding, remembering the photographs, the silent suitcase, and the life I had built since then. Could she have changed? Or was this just another attempt to reopen doors I had firmly closed? Eventually, I agreed to meet her, not for reconciliation, not for forgiveness, but for clarity. We met in a small, neutral cafe. Time had softened her features, and her eyes held the weariness of regret. Our conversation was brief, cautious. No dramatics, no accusations, just the acknowledgement of choices, consequences, and the years that had passed. When I left that cafe, I felt lighter than I had in a decade. My peace wasn't dependent on her words, her remorse, or her presence. It was rooted in the life I had rebuilt, the love I had nurtured with Sarah, and the dignity I had preserved when I walked away. The past was no longer a chain but a shadow I could acknowledge without letting it control me. I walked forward fully unburdened, finally free.